Yeah, I'm going to try and pick up here real quick about where I was at with the algorithm and the thing about the, the TH being like 28 in air and the principle of proper English numerical composition of the P being visible and silent. Likewise, the R between like county and country. And, P being visible and pronounced and P being visible and silent that way with like the TH and the word algorithm or rhythm being, the TH being, the thought of like a visible but not pronounced, that way being, rhythm into rhyme. Well, anyway, it's kind of like I was like mentioning some idea about, the Queensryche song. Queensryche being 140 Pearland, Texas, alphanumeric attenuation and Purple Heart and, quite a bit. But anyway, I was kind of like thinking about that because I was thinking about that one word, taxi, and the word taxi being in the song Just City Woman on an Empire compact disc of Queensryche, okay? And she says that one word, okay? Well, anyway, like taxi is played like, 54, like de facto is like Vantage Love 30 or Secret de facto 30. 30 being, like an Eagle Baby Bible map and, all that stuff about 30 and then spelled out, it's like, THIRTY being like 100 or, thought of like a quarter or a telephone or I thought of maybe, like even a century. Although century is 106 and the ABC thing about the 6 thing about it, okay? But anyway, like it's getting into the rhyme side, okay, and I lost my battery power on my special effects like laser that was just showing it just like cut off. Anyway, I have another one, but anyway, it's kind of like it was getting to the thought of like that one word being taxi. My thinking about getting with all this information in alphanumerics and linguistics, it's kind of like it's got to all available information and the thing about that one word being involving I'm a drummer, okay, so like I automatically think of like a rhythm, okay, and that one word with the TH being principle of like being visible but silent, like 28 TH being 28 in air, okay, being rhyme, okay, and that one word taxi in that song, okay, being in Pearland, Texas, okay, and being like a my thing about litigation and de facto and writs of habeas corpus as compared to the thought of like Vantage Love 30 and Secret de facto. The thing with this is that when rhythm becomes like the word rhyme, it's kind of like that one word taxi can be like the color yellow automatically. And ultimately it got to like the Houston area and the gallery furniture thing and the dump and some idea of like the desert being 71. It's like thinking about all the stuff and the taxi being yellow and the Tonka truck and the rhyme thing, purple being 88 and there's like an electrical building that focus on according to the information like most of them meter reading of like center point and now the Texas New Mexico Power, the TNMP transmission delivery provider about certain information. But anyway, so it got to the rhyme thing, it's almost like the Vodka Tonka thing about it, okay? Over this one word taxi, and my thought about what, if it's the one person that has the identity, it seemed to have all the similarities of I'm assuming different singers, but in my mind they all have the same similarities of appearance, okay? Based on like vocal tone and just hearing her. And I recognize her voice, quite a bit, like in Toto and For Him, and, her thing about her father's holy canopy and the secret hiding place, and a couple songs from like the Identical Twin and Rainbow. I mean, the Identical Twin and Nelson in like Los Angeles, and some of their like songs. So it's like Toto, as well as Nelson and For Him, and my thought about that one word with Queensryche being taxi, in my mind that one thing about the huge dump truck that I was referring to, it seemed to be like the hugest dump truck that anyone could see in their entire lifetime. But anyway, I think that is her, if I'm not mistaken, of the similarities of the vocals. But anyway, it's like a huge dump truck out in the middle of the desert being 71, and the Rutger Hauer thing, and during that thing, somewhere in my mind about, if it's just the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi being like a Rutger Hauer and a Christopher Walken saying, Yeah, maybe so. Or, something in my mind about Duran Duran and some of the information between, like, Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters with 2020. And, 20 being alphanumerics of 107. That way, or, twice. Being like, yeah, what, 214, huh? Huh. Yeah. Anyway, like, in any case, yeah, anyway, so, like, I'll have to collect my thoughts again real quick on it anyway, but yeah, in any case, so, like, it's the Vakataka, and it's almost like the similarities of the word rhyme, provided, like the International Electrical Electronic Engineering provided in Houston area, the word rhyme as, like, electrical, billing of, like, a meter reading of, like, Texas and Mexico Power and, like, Centerpoint Energy in the Houston area. But anyway, yeah, so, like, it seemed to be automatically, the Trump, California, and Roosevelt New Deal Act and the purple thing that way, and the Mormon thing of, like, California and the New Deal Act, and similarities to the energy, predominantly, seemingly now, my memory of, like, knowing, and repeatedly, I'll always say, I don't really like using the word version. Maybe intellectual duration of, like, what meaning and value and content is as distribution and conveyance, yeah. Probably more so than just maybe saying, version. Yeah, or, in any case, so, like, in that way, it kind of seemed to be, like the intellectual, word of meaning and value of, like, the real deal about, what value is in that way of intellectual property based upon distribution and having use of available information that way as compared to the thought of version. It's almost seemingly gives, like, the option of choice, that way as compared to maybe only the availability as minimized, or a geographic thing about first, second, third world that way maybe. But anyway, so, like, it gets to, like, the rhyme thing about the intelligence and opposite, like it's almost like a Motley Crue song, and I'm going to refer to it because the City Boy Blues, okay, the song on a Motley Crue, like, compact disc, okay, and it's like all the friends are eating sushi, talking bad about who, and the rhyme thing about it, okay, it's a thing about the sushi being Japanese and 71 in Pearland, okay, and the fish being like 1 cycle per second, measuring cycles of frequency, measuring frequency, cycles per second and oscillation, and it being like the McDonald's Golden Arches at the same time, not really the same time, but above the the equator, or the center line of oscillation, like McDonald's Golden Arches, okay, and visual of, like, degree level of representatives considerable participation at measuring a cycle per second in oscillation. It's like in chronological, not necessarily in the now of equality, which is normally, some idea of, like, an electronic schematic that people put on their cars as a symbolic representation of Christianity. Not limited to even, thought of Calamity Jane, or, the latter involving, like, normally it's identified as salmon. I'm not sure. I don't think it's limited to, although predominantly that's quite a bit about, salmon swimming upstream and a ladder being provided as compared to the thought of Calamity Jane that way. And clams and all the stuff about, what's in the river and being baptized there in the gold rush, and all that stuff about panning and the walk. But anyway, yeah, so, like, it got to the Motley Crue thing about, the phrase that all the friends were eating sushi talking about who, yet at the same time, I mean, it's like the intelligence opposite. And the rhyme part about, talking about heaven and all that Yoko, oh no, food, ooh, hoo. Yeah, and the City Boy Blues, it seemed to be the thing about, blues being like 59 with the S, 40 blue, and with the S, the 19 being like 59. And think about Highway 59, okay, and equaling 140 in Pearland, Texas, okay, and that song City Boy Blues, because it seemed to be the thing of alphanumerics that way, presenting the idea of, like, international citizenship of City Boy Blues, and that thing about Yoko Ono and John Lennon, and it seemed to be so much about, the baptism thing, and it seemed to be the Six Flags thing about, possibly the only connectivity of, like, the thing about, that one song, in my mind, me being, anywhere from like progressive heavy metal, hard pop, punk rock to, Christian contemporary and soft rock that way. And plus going to a lot of concerts, during and right after high school, and, listening to a lot of hard rock, okay? Now it's predominantly, focusing more so like, on, the Christian, progressive, side of rock and soft and contemporary, Christian music more so. In any case, so like, that one song seemed to have significance in a way, like, thinking about Friendswood and all the friends were eating sushi, talking about, who. At the same time, the connectivity of the rhyme, talking about heaven and all that Yoko Ono food. I mean, it seemed to be like, so it. The Japanese thing being Pearland, and the sushi thing, that way, and the electronic schematic fish being, symbolic representation of cycle per second oscillation being like a schematic fish, and all that stuff about the Delta Force, and the fish swimming upstream in Big Mouth of the river, and the misappropriation and allocation that way of lyrics, being, talking about having all that Yoko Ono food, and ultimately getting to John Lennon, and the thing about, being baptized during the gold rush, I mean, for real. And it seemed to be like, now, it seemed like June 14th, 1992, on a Saturday morning, a baptism I had at the Mormon church, and it's kind of like, an experience, that seemed to be, that ultimately, yeah, all right, yeah, somehow had been, ultimately, years later, my thought of like shadow government, Stargate program, and quite a bit, going on during 1994, 95, 96, and 97, really, but predominantly, my thing about, the difference between like 1995 being 9/11 or September 11th, 1995 to like 2001, the difference of like when the World Trade Center, catastrophe, like was like, the first time I'd really seen it, although certain factors being some idea of like, some really intense time during that duration, seemingly, a lot about being taken to various locations around the entire world during a 6 to 9 month period that seemed to be, ultimately, while I was asleep, experienced like air raid, how many different times, but it seemed to be ultimately getting to like different locations all over the different places around the entire world, and color-coded and we international thing about music videos and different locations, and a bunch of gold and some information that way. But I'd mentioned that, ultimately it had really predominantly started when I realized I was looking at like a bunch of Microsoft screens that were being presented like a PowerPoint presentation, and realizing that it had been sequenced, and pretty much, I'm not sure if it was all the same, but I recognized some of them as a sequence, not always in the same order, but the same as a sequence over a period of years. And I noticed I was like seeing that again and again. And when I was like looking at that once again, the European's most wealthiest museum, it's like I realized I'd been taken there, and I was thinking that, that really looks like a funeral home. And I didn't think of it like immediately about like being like a funeral home for like, dead people being like, all, preserved, But really, I mean, ultimately it got into like what I'm seeing like now. It's like, it seemed to be the thing about the European thing. And even Australia now, some of the videos of like, they're showing like a Vision 6, the AI Vision 6, and the Barrett, the BAR, and the accented AT thing. And like, I think it's I'm not sure if it's a soundscape, but there's like quite a few videos, and a bunch of people, I mean, sitting and staring at each other, and standing still and staring, and a lot of videos of like the Egyptian thing. And some like futuristic cities that likewise I actually was like taken to, that are like predominantly a lot of those that are showing like right now, and realizing certain factors, it seemed like that even some of the futuristic cities, I mean, unlike anything like anywhere, it's, how true, I'm not really real sure if the Billy Thorpe thing about the children of the sun thing about the launched the crystal ships and their celestial flight, the crystal ships. The Christ, huh? Is it the Christ, the baptism? Is it really the thing about the children of the sun launch the crystal ships? I mean, is it really the Christ of the Six Flag baptism, June 14th, 1992, of like a alphanumeric linguistic thing, a crystal, and pronunciation between long and short, and pronunciation is the Christ alphanumeric linguistic thing of Six Flags that seemed to be June 14th, 1992 of Six Flags, yeah. I mean, originally I didn't really, identify or refer to it as that, and now seem to be, the big deal about the number 6, and between like ABC 13 Houston to ABC 7 Los Angeles, the difference between J and D, like, 10 and 4 being 6, J.D. Powers, and, the 6 presidential terms in office between Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt. A difference in two, and the 1995 thing about the World Trade Center being 9/11 automatically, like September 11th to like the year 2001, it's like a difference of 6. And all these things about, factors of 6, and some other reference to, an idea of a coupon. But in any case, there's like quite a bit about that seemed to be, the idea of like a presidential reference that way, using that one number in alphanumeric value, the word spelled out being like a 52 in a VPN, as compared to whether or not if the idea of a carbon footprint or absentee voting is only distinguishing if a virtual personal network is the only thought of whether or not if region 1 is the idea of like Texas, New Mexico power, not a question of alphanumerics between like Texas, Mexico, and Jehovah, or the U.S. dollar being defined, the book Secrets of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, as some like religious issue, and the alphanumerics is 69 below the equator, involving Latin terminology, or some idea like a mammon in a way, But in any case, okay, the thing with this is that if it's ultimately getting to the difference between, some idea of like a Univision using 3 pastels in black, and towards the end like a 3 pastels in a white being some idea of even the Lexus LFSA, or some idea of like a Remo black dot drumhead to an Aquarium Power white dot drumhead, or the difference between like the Northern Lights or the Arctic Circle, and Antarctica, and how true that is about the Northern Lights of like the Arctic Circle, predominantly like Alaska, as compared to like Antarctica. I wait my whole life to be polite. Yeah, and really when I say that, I'm normally referring to something about the Northern Lights and the Arctic Circle and the North Pole and the South Pole, and some idea of like Univision. If that's really the deal about the black and white thing, or, going through an Abraham Lincoln night vision Stargate program, shadow government, and the thought of like, what only a kernel means, and like American history as compared to computer programming, being some idea computer programming that seemed to be like a location of the Oracle Corporation at Smith Avenue up in, the Oracle Corporation in Houston area up in a high rise. And I noticed like a real big noticeable change between their website and what seemed to be, the idea of that location, or, the idea of like a blacksmith, a locksmith, or the name Smith and a black and white thing, predominantly, of similarly, the idea of a kernel in American history that way, or, thought of, what a plantation is or is not as compared to a Native American Indian, reservation, or some thought of a telepathic teepee, or, or what aggregates is monetary domestic gross national product that way of like, and at this point, the difference between like multinational corporations and international banking systems, not limited to the U.S. dollar, based upon, region 0, having fair use of some idea of like whether an entire neighborhood is the thought of like not a commercial venue. And my thought now about escrow seems to be, predominantly of real estate, maybe more so whether or not if appreciation is the only issue of a tax credit as compared to a deduction, beyond the Internal Revenue Service, of something idea of free and clear in my mind, something of American Express and a prepaid card, or, what the real deal is of like the difference between like Wells Fargo and like Region Bank presenting, the idea of the difference between like Wells Fargo presenting, clear access banking, and like Regions Bank presenting, the insights as compared to what appears to be internal that way, and yet provides the idea that Quicken Books is some idea of maybe, all those factors. And likewise, I mentioned like Robert E. Rubin, involved with like Citigroup and the United States Secretary of Treasury, as compared to Bob Walker, the New York Federal Reserve Bank during Reaganomics. They'd called the New York Federal Reserve Bank president. The name is in the book Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country, Paul Volcker. I'm not real clear if that's actual or alphanumeric, or only the idea of a VPN, as whether it's a vice president network, or a carbon footprint, or like an absentee voting information that way. That's why I'm mentioning it, because of international financial management as Region 0 being like the idea of a carbon footprint. And I'm kind of wondering if that's really the deal about the name Paul Volcker involving the New York Federal Reserve Bank president, that Ronald Reagan called in to fix the situation of economics in that way during his presidential terms in office. And it presents all the idea of the U.S. dollar that way, of a Federal Reserve Bank. Yet at the same time, Robert E. Rubin, which is like the now thing, presents the idea of the principle of like the same thing with human capitals, only based upon, determination what the acronym stands software is, based upon, if the idea is commerce dictating what's on or offshore, or some idea as a method of banking, as holding, as a boycott and embargo, or the idea, really, if all that's about like a carbon footprint and absentee voting that way, of a VPN, vice president network, or the idea of like a via plenipotentiary as compared to a virtual personal network, for real, okay? So like, I've been thinking about all that because it seemed to be, the idea of, what, citizenship birthright only means, the thought of maybe, going beyond, thought of like a black footprint on the birth certificate. Many people, okay, it seems to be ultimately not now, okay, Fort Stockton, Texas is presenting, the Permian Basin. And now, the difference between like a memorial as compared to a monument, or international monetary funds. If monetary is a categorization of memorial, or absentee voting, or carbon footprint, or what intellectual duration only means in lifespan, as if it's a boycott and embargo based upon a VPN, or a current event, and who's kidding who about what intellectual is or is not, or who knows anyway for him, okay? And the thing with it is that really ultimately, I'm on supplemental security income, and all the way through this, after June 14th, 1992, that only I'm seeing more now, my reference in a way of a Six Flags baptism, okay? On a Saturday morning, it seemed to be like the highest possible score of 2,400 in VSAT communications, even linked to the home theater, like American Amplified that way, a bandwidth and spectrum, I'm sure it's not limited to, some idea of IBM and some, thought of a, conversion from analog to digital, from the idea of like a solid state to some idea of like standardization of state-of-the-art technology, and some conversion between like analog to digital, and what that is to, the Roosevelt New Deal Act, because now it seems to be, based upon, the idea that energy had been included with not limited to different locations, and what was available as the involvement, even Wikipedia. There was a New Deal Act presenting issues like energy, sometimes the idea of like even OPEC's involvement, as an acronym, oil, petroleum, and energy, oil, petroleum, energy countries, producing countries. But anyway, so like, in any case, so like, the affirmation of what OPEC is, what is that, 31, 36, 37, 30, 39. It's like 39 in like ERP and Wyatt Earp and the OPEC thing, the acronym, and Wyatt Earp thing about some idea of like a exclusionary rule provision of ERP. Executive powers and sovereign immunities and governmental amnesties that way seem to be the thing about even the history of a television screen going through like some idea of pastels, of like a Technicolor, now in the thought of like pewter being like the categorization of a pastel with like metallic paint, the principle of like toner beyond, paste being used for like fingerprints, even footprints on a birth certificate, is the thing about, pewter having metallic particles like graphite in Mobile 1, and the metallic particles like in pewter paint is a categorization of pastel, yet used in toner beyond the pasty, compound, into like a dry toner side of the copying process, involving light, because, like when the photoconductive, material on two that island of is orange cambium and a silver selenium is a photoconductive material. That when it spins, there's like a corona wire that applies a charge, and sometimes a sclerotron grid that actually like, smooths out and spreads out an even displacement of like a electrical charge on drum. And when light shines, reflects off the paper, the different shades of like pictures, as well as like normally like bold block print of like print, and the light that reflects on the part of the paper that does not have anything on it, it dissipates the electrical charge on the drum and lifts the toner at the same time. And where the charge is normally the letters that are duplicated and printed, and it's like a metallic particle. It's almost like Mobile One graphite. Yet at the same time, it's almost like the metallic and the pewter in a transition from like, all the paper made to the electronic side of like LightScribe and biometrics that way. Even the white footprint that I've just referred to, involving like, and now it seemed to be the pasty symbol thing of close to 900 symbols, and an experience that ultimately was like, some, idea of like a consumption that had led to like, traveling through my entire body, down my legs on both sides, into my feet, and like a white paste. I don't want to call it sap, but really not funny. Yeah, and my feet were like completely white. I mean, it had a seriously, and I mean, if you want to call it like a generous film of like white stuff like coming out, seeping through the pores of my skin, above my ankle, up to my calf muscle. Yeah, yeah. My first thought being a drummer is like, that's like pasty. That's like pasty. So it's automatically, I'm automatically thinking like We International, and I wasn't even thinking of like a white footprint beyond, biometrics, or thing about going beyond my feet to the fingers, and the thing about biometrics and LightScribe and like a bunch of white stuff. Okay, because anyone knows anything about biometrics, that's not involving any paper and being electronic that way. It's a bunch of white stuff until the fingerprints are actually on it, and going beyond that of like LightScribe. And my some people's first or thoughts on LightScribe might not really be the way I see a bunch of white stuff. Okay, it's not limited to like certain factors of it seemed to be like the link to the YouTube.com. Because a lot of factors are like it seemed to be involving like musicians unions, the State of the Union address, and We International, because it seemed to be like going through it at different locations. That one Europe's most wealthiest museum, and all of a sudden I'm like, remember I was like actually taking her. It's like it's got like white statues in there, like a kind of like a charcoal gray, like squares in white ivory, maybe marble, but it's like a black and white checkerboard looking floor. And I remember that I was like actually taking her. I didn't remember a thing about it. I mean, even for like 15 years, and I'm like looking at it, and I realize I'm looking at a sequence of what's presented like a PowerPoint of like Microsoft screensavers. I mean, I wasn't looking for it. It just like started happening on my laptop. In any case, so like and when I saw it just like here recently, the videos of like the word Barrett, the bar, raising the bar, seemed to be the GMC raising the bar thing, not limited to, but yeah, it seemed to be like all the gold of like futuristic cities and designs of like, entire cities, and some of these places I was actually taken to, and some have the like spaceships and the space age like transportation involving what appears to be similar to like subways, and there's like certain ideas of like a armored artillery that's like almost like what's you would see like in Avatar, the movie Avatar, controlled like manpower actually sitting in it, like robotic in a way of like motion. Some of those were like similar of that at a location. I mean, remember anything about it? It's like there's like 6 to 9 month period that obviously I don't even really realize why it's done like that. I mean, I didn't even remember. I mean, not one thing about it until I realized. I kind of suspected that because I knew that it a period like that had happened. That I almost firstly couldn't almost really account for, but that happening while asleep, like an air raid. I mean, how many times? But anyway, it's like a different location. I mean, all around the entire world that way. And realizing for the first time is when I really noticed that one particular screensaver of Europe's most wealthiest museum, and ultimately all the videos that are showing that all these like people and like the Barrett soundscape and AI Vision 6 and like a whole bunch of videos with a bunch of futuristic gold and white and futuristic cities and certain locations and all that. It's like remembering something about it. Yeah, so like that's like going on, okay. But anyway, yeah, so like it seemed to be like with everyone staring, it seemed to be like almost like, and including Australia, because it seemed to be some of the information I've been like talking about on YouTube. It's really only because after certain factors happen, I kind of like shut it down, or just having a strata red pearl vision. I mean, it seemed to be like so like obvious that now it seemed like I was going to, when I first saw that drum set, I would have got the strata blue like I'm getting now and working on getting what you see me now on like at WadeASVPriddy. at youtube.com. That's WadeASVPriddy at youtube.com, okay? I'm on what is a total of like 35-piece drum set, including hardware and cymbals and special effects like a hi-hat cymbal, hi-hat tambourine, cowbell, and a special effects chime, and a special effects cymbal, and I think it's like 7 or 8 cymbals and the effects and percussion that way, along with like a 15-piece drum set, 6, 8, 10 roto, and 4 octobones, and 2 mounted on each bass, being a total of 6, and a floor tom and a snare, and all that being a total of 15. But all of it, including my drum throne, yeah, it's like 35 pieces. Well, anyway, like I'm working on that again, because what was then, I was going to get like the Pearl Rocket transparent ruby red to match my drum set. It's now, what only seems to be available now is like, according to networking, is the Chaos, like ice blue octobones with the 3-inch increments that really, predominantly Pearl is the only ones that I know of that actually did it first. And now the Chaos is like presented as an Australian thing, which seems to be the information right now, like going through a circuit of some of the information, and even linking the SID thing about Sydney and the nei, or the yen in Japanese thing about, Pearland, being 71 in Pearland. It seemed like, somewhere in between Australia and the Japanese yen, there's like the identification number going through the circuit, not limited to other types of like identification and numbers and acronyms and all that. It seemed to be some idea of like the SID, the SID, and the Sydney thing, that it seemed to be the 9 degree of the equator and a point of origin of military time. It seemed to be the Sydney, Australia thing that way. And now, it seemed to be like, like Speedcast, what was originally like Caprock Telecommunications and Harris Corporation and Caprock Communication. Now it's Speedcast. Predominantly, yeah. So like, anyway, so like a lot of information is going on in this immediate area. Yeah, so like, anyway, so like it's already going on like 32 minutes again. But that's like I'm thinking about all this because like certain factors involving networking and software engineering, and the deal about the hardware side of like hubs and space separation. Likewise, Cisco being the thing about even the deal about Cisco toilet paper, pronunciation and spelling, and the roller coaster thing of GIT. It seemed to be the Cisco presents the bars like it's different lengths of like poles and bars as a cycle per second. Yet the poles are used in like although 7-Eleven used to present the crazy straw, the book cover of the GIT is like that roller coaster, which is alphanumerics of 36 GIT and geospatial information technology. Somewhere between like RPM on Highway 288 and Bass Pro seemed to be the thing. What is that? 49, 50, 51, 71, and like 90. It seemed to be like the deal, the deal about, the 90 degree right angle, even Bass Pros. Let me think about that again. 49, 50, 51. 71, and like 90, okay? It's like the 9 degree right angle, pro bass between, like you got all the right stuff. It's like you're an astronaut, and, cosmetology base, attached to like some geographic thing about Highway 59, ultimately getting to, yeah. It's almost like the Nolan Ryan Express is presenting the California Angels thing about, certain factors that way, and somewhere between like Nolan Ryan being the pictures on the Astro and the grayscale, being the 10 shades of the grayscale, likewise orange, and the thing about, California, Orange County, and all the connectivity of the Coast Guard that way, and then like 5 shades, or was it 6? I think there's, I'm not sure if it's 3, but I know there was 10, then I think there was like 5 and 6, that's like 21, like you. Yeah, or the pronunciation YOU being 61 in news in America, huh? Because there's like, there's like 10 mandatory standard requirements of 10 shades of gray of a grayscale. And it's normally 10. But I think I have seen that Houston Astro with a 5 grayscale and a 6 grayscale. And I know that Diners Club is a 5. It seemed to be the font size issue of like the symbolic representation, at least, the idea of like Japanese language reading top from bottom. Yeah, it presents the font size and the 5 shades of gray going, from like blue to darker blue, and like, navy blue, then midnight blue, and then black. It's like, like a shadow government thing about the Stargate program. Even the color code of the Air Force One seemed to be the acronym of the FBI that way. identifying, Federal Bureau of Investigation as compared to Family Business Intelligence or even the Foreign Bureau like intelligence. And that's the thing about it, seemed to be the color code of the uniform during, 94, 95, 96, and 97. Yeah, it seemed to be the thing about the color code of the Air Force One, the President of the United States that way, presenting an acronym, identifying, some idea between the Federal Reserve and the U.S. dollar, an acronym FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and like Foreign Bureau of Intelligence, and the actual color. And it seemed to be like it seemed to be like an intellectual duration of the color of the midnight blue on, and combined with like, what is normally the colors of the 1040 EZ form, like the baby blue and the white thing about the Air Force, One, and the President of the United States, and the colors of like UCLA, and all this stuff, and 1040 EZ, and like ultimately, supplemental security income, of non-taxable income, and the similarities between the RISA and the IRA, a prepaid tax, and all that stuff, and Apple iPhone SE that way between the RISA and the IRA. There's only like the S and the E left over, and it's like now it seems to be automatically Apple iPhone SE thing about it, and the 24 of the IEEE and the GMAC and the HOA and the RF, the redundant frequency, and the SE itself, and pronunciation and vision that way, and the yes in language, and the alphanumeric thing about it, yeah. So like anyway, like it's already going on like 36 minutes, but I want to include that much about it, and once again real quick about, the algorithm, the rhythm, and the 28 being like air of the word rhythm being rhyme, and the thing about it seemed to be the thing about, the Motley Crue song City Boy Blues, and blues being the alphanumeric of 59. Yeah, I mean it's yeah. Highway 59 is 148 in Fairland, Texas. Highway 10, yeah, it's like a patent compatible 10th, yeah. Hey, all right, yeah, I got some programming going on, yeah. So it's like I was thinking about that Motley Crue song, City Boy Blues, and they said that all their friends are eating sushi, talking about who, but the rhyme thing about it's like automatically in my mind, considering everything that's happened, it's almost like, the John Lennon, all my friends were talking about heaven, and that Yoko, oh no, food, ooh, yeah. Yeah, it seemed to be the deal about the tent, and like Sarah, and the thing about Jacob and Abraham. Excuse me. I always want to say Jacob because of the latter, but it's Abraham and Joseph. I mean, I think I may have actually heard it both ways, but it seemed to be the significance of, the thought of like a Sarah, and I think there's a thing about Sarah. Sarah's known as like one of the most beautiful women, in the entire like King James Version Bible. Okay, and think about the desert and all this information. It seemed to be all connected, and the history of the U.S. dollar being presented. The Temple House Federal Reserve runs the country, and the information that presents Roosevelt New Deal Act and the Reaganomics, and the idea of the laser, the Reagan. Oh my God, yeah. So, I mean, all this information, like I'm a drummer, okay? And ultimately, now, I have like a lighting effects that you'll see, like sometimes with fog, with like lasers and 3D animation and strobes and effects lighting and yeah, so like, and, think about, really, it seemed to be the Geneva, Switzerland thing about the being venue. Terminology and linguistics is automatically not maybe apparent in how true it is about, the summit meetings as compared to the civil rights, human civil rights thing about it, and how true that is. I mean, the pronunciation seemed to be the being venue, identified with a horizontal rectangle, what would be automatically in my mind, of like a international financial management and the hood ornament for Lincoln Continental at a 9-degree, being some idea of a wide area network and wide world sports. Maybe even EA Sports, but EA Sports, and I'm not sure what the deal is about EA Sports and like YouTube. But it's kind of like not cool thinking that anything other than, the original thing of like legal meaning deposition as like, not the thought of like a EA Sports, playing the ever-living crap out, anything other than like what I have to say. I mean, it's like as far as like alphanumeric linguistics, I mean, I'm virtually, it's like 100% accurate like every time. Anything that doesn't sound accurate, it's like really not cool, like when I hear it and notice it. I mean, even like with, using like standard as a drummer. Really, I was like intending, when I first started using my drums, it's like predominantly like a portfolio based upon, what I chose as a standard. And I'm redirecting my attention and it's really getting a little frustrating about my original music, and it seemed to be like going on about maybe whether or not, if knowing or not knowing what intellectual is or is not, or the thought of like, hey, you gotta be kidding me. It seems to be like there's been like issues like getting to like my original music is it's become apparently, I mean, so not cool. Well, like how it's happened, and I mean, real not cool. Okay, so like I'm really trying to get like on my original music and not some automatic reaction like just putting in a compact disc and go along with it that you'll see. Like I mentioned before, it's like I'm more than like 3,000 individual songs as a drummer, likewise as a singer. Predominantly everything I play on my drums. I mean, not everything. I probably play more on my drums than actually some of the songs that I sing. But I mean, I like to sing all the time, okay? And it's like really not a problem. But I mean, that has been presented. Maybe the thought of some factors is like really not cool about like why I'm even in a tent in my own home right now that has a cathedral ceiling. But actually, I'm really trying to focus more on the direction of completing what you see as a 35 piece, including hardware and cymbals, as a Pearl Vision VSX ISS, yes, Strata Red like drum set, okay, double bass of course, yeah, and like I'm getting the Strata Blue, yeah, and I don't know if I'm wanting the Pearl Vision, like what you see, I don't know if it's just like the immediate era, if it's just me, but as far as networking goes, I mean the availability of like getting Pearl Vision like in an ice blue, it seemed to be like the real cool color that would go really good with the Strata Blue. Pearl Vision VSX Strata Blue with the ISS mounted toms as well, yeah. And it's really cool about the ISS being the mounting system and integrated like a suspension system that is still the acronym. And my thing about the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi and ultimately the PPI, but like an international superstar and supplemental security or international Secret Service or International Space Station, supplemental security, or superstar intelligence and all that stuff. So like I'm really, I mean, it's like, where's my Diners Club? Like yeah, bring it to me, yeah. And all expense paid, yeah. and all that idea of like symbolic representation leading to quantum and reading Japanese and some idea of the structure a little bit beyond the thought of calculus, yeah. So like it's kind of like automatically it's kind of like, hey, all right, Diners Club, yeah. yeah. Where's it at? Yeah, bring it to me, yeah. yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's really kind of cool, because I haven't seen Diners Club in quite some time, really. But although the EBT and the deal about all that, yeah, could use a little bit more of it, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So like anyway, it's already going on like 42 minutes and like 53 seconds. But anyway, I wanted to include that much right now, and I guess I'll have to. I'm running on battery power right now. But anyway, yeah. So like there's that much about it. Yeah, I'm gonna take a break. Okay, talk to you later.